All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a very special edition of the ShadowCast. We have Ra's al Ghul, Bobby Hunter here, and we are not going to go over any yikeses. We're not going over any matchups, although there are plenty of interesting matchups this week to go over. Instead, we will be focusing on a look back at the big-time, world-renowned League of Shadows draft. It happens every year at whatever beautiful house the O'Reillys choose to live in at that point in time. And we invade it, take over the backyard, put up a big cardboard boxed draft kit, and just drink from kegs for about 6 hours, hang around at the fire pit for another 2, and then go hit up the Squire for another 5. This year was no different, Bob. It was a fantastic experience. I'd say one of the best. It was great to have an opportunity to be really, even though COVID is still hitting us a little bit, it was great to have an opportunity to, have that vaccination status, have all of us together there again and really carefree this time around.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to say thank you again to the O'Reillys. It's not easy hosting that many guys. And I know, we're known to get a little rowdy. So once again, thanks to the O'Reillys, and it's been a pleasure every year. I can't wait to continue it, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll be back again. There's no doubt about it. How can we say no? What's interesting, Bob, is there are some teams already wishing that the next year's draft was happening tomorrow, and that we'd go down there, have a great time on Columbus Day instead of Labor Day, and just kind of redo things. Sadly, there are too many teams like that, and you live with one of them. But it's just it's a fickle beast, fantasy football. It's really tough. They're these picks you look at, even when you're doing well. We both have solid squads this year, but you look back at these picks and you're like, wow, there's a guy I didn't even see coming right when I took player X that has exploded, and what a find he would be. So what we're going to do, ladies and gents, is do a draft of the draft. So each of us are going to have a pick from each round, good or bad, and just kind of go over what the ramifications have been so far, how everything has gone through so far this year, and what the future expectations are for these players. But first and foremost, we had a few years ago keepers introduced to the league, where someone could be kept if you are round 8 and above for a price of 2 draft picks, or 2 draft rounds subtracted. So that means an 8th round pick, if kept, turns into a 6th round slot, 10th round to 8th round, 12th round to 10th round, so on and so forth. We had a few keepers this year, Bob, yourself included. And let's just start right off with you, because you were one of the first owners to sever ties with a keeper, with a longstanding member of your organization, really, really quickly, right after week 3. Tell us a little bit about your thinking going into the year, what changed, and how it is that now Dallas Goedert is a fab wire guy on Paula at your boy.
Yeah, absolutely. So my thought process going into that was I thought Ertz was getting traded, and I thought the Eagles offense was going to be high flying, and Dallas seemed like he, bound to be a top 5 tight end. And then obviously that didn't happen. And Landy was asking me if I wanted to change my keeper, but I had already locked it in, and I figured, he'd finish in the top 10 to 12. And that's all I'm looking for. And just like, I was planning on streaming tight ends this year. So I was like, all right, I'll take him in the 14th round. His ADP is probably, 11th round. So I thought it was a value pick, but could have hurt me because I, maybe could have got someone else in that spot.
Yeah, that's the ultimate issue, right? Where I think Patman Jones was dealing with the Damian Harris keep that he decided not to, because that value was so similar. And the ultimate decision that came down from his front office was that you don't want to have a slot and see a guy that you love and have him get missed. But I think with the Dallas keeper, who wasn't expecting Zach Ertz to get traded this offseason, and then still to this day, it just doesn't seem to be a fit. And Dallas still put up some TE1 numbers last year. And he's an athletic freak. He's a monster, and he looks like he's still doing well across the board when the Eagles need him. But is he that tight end that really gets you consistent numbers, like a 12 to 14 numbers? It's yet to be seen, but that's very understandable. We had a few others that were really, really interesting across the board. We'll go over to another franchise that might be very, very sad by Monday night due to your performance against him, and that's Chafe Gentleman. Chafe Gentleman went into last year with DK Metcalf as his keeper, I believe, in the 8th round, and tore up the league. He proved that he's finally there for the taking. He has a squad that's not to be trifled with. And then this year he comes right back. The front office's keeper moves fantastic. Josh Allen right there for him. So, when you look at Josh Allen, he looks like the favorite for keeper of the year pretty easily so far through 4 weeks, right?
Yeah, I think definitely it gives his team a huge advantage just having that, top 5 QB every week. And we're starting to see the Buffalo Bills, be the Buffalo Bills. I know they started out a little slow, I think, but that's a huge value. And I'm kind of looking at the draft board as for like this year's keepers. And honestly, it's probably a little too early to say because I'm looking at the last couple rounds. The only thing that really stands out to me is Justin Herbert. I think he's, kind of like a Josh Allen, like where, he's in his second year now. He's probably going to take that leap to maybe be a top 5 quarterback. So I think that was a good pick out of Tom. And then obviously Trey Lance looked really good last week. And then not to pat my own self on the back, but I planned on taking Michael Thomas in the 8th. So we'll see what he ends up being, but that could be great 6th-round value if he is MT.
Former 1st-round pick, Michael Thomas, and could be a perfect situation. I mean, the draft strategy was on point there because you had a 7th and an 8th-round pick right next to each other, sandwiched in between Bissell's 2 picks. And you probably went into a pretty much daring Bissell to take him in the 7th or 8th, his 7th or 8th slot, knowing that you didn't want to take him in your 7th slot and then have him in the 8th for a potential 6th next year. And I think he's on his way to recovery, coming back and looking forward to coming back soon. So that'll be an interesting one. I had a very similar situation with Rashad Bateman. I saw him as kind of a discount DK Metcalf, where he's in the 10th round, coming back from an injury, a little unheralded, a little forgotten about too, since he came back from injury. So that'll be an interesting one to monitor. We are all over that because he's practicing, he's coming back, he's looking to return at some point soon. And I think, there are a bunch of interesting keepers out there. Noah Fant continues to be a little interesting in the 10th round for Chafed. There is Alex has Green Eggs and Hummus have a few of them with Trey Lance, Jalen Hurts. They're right there in the 11th or 12th. That could be very, very interesting. That's everything is yet to be played out this year. And it showed last year because I think with the T. Higgins pick for Tom, the floppy knockers, there are a few guys that kind of come along later in the year. DK Metcalf was one of them as well for the Chafe Gentleman, who just looked like a no-brainer by next August, and you didn't see that coming. I think I had that with Chris Godwin a few years ago when all of a sudden the steam started rolling on that train, and he was a 4th-round value by the time I was looking at my keeper, and he turned into an 8th-round pick. And I said, kind of the same thing with you and Goddard with the value is, this is kind of a no-brainer to take a risk on, and it worked out very well for me. So that worked out. And
the good news is
I'm
looking at the last 2 rounds and I'm not seeing anyone that's standing out yet. So I think the league's going to be pretty safe from that T. Higgins, sliding into the 14th. It looks like we took a lot of kickers and defenses, and I think Chafe took some Patriots players. So I don't know.
Well, you know how that turns out. And I think the T. Higgins. I don't think we've been able to see the fruits of Tom's labor with that one because of his injury, but it sounds like he's coming back soon and he'll continue to be a threat. So Bob, just to refresh on what we're going to do, I think we're going to do on and off. So if I could ask you you get first pick, but I get to choose, you go 1st round, great pick at value. and then I'll go first round, bad pick. Next round, round 2, I go good pick, you go bad pick, and we'll keep rolling.
All right. Sounds good. So I'm first round, good pick.
First round, good pick.
I think you either have to go with Derrick Henry or Eckler. Right now, they're the top 2 running backs. And obviously, there was a lot of running backs taken before them. McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Zeke. So Queef's getting Henry at 6 when I feel like some people thought that offense might be a little bit different with Julio, or I believe they brought in a new offensive coordinator. And I feel like the people are starting to say like he has too much wear on his tires and, Derrick Henry is eventually going to fall off the cliff. But early on this season, it looks like that's not the case. So Derrick Henry, great value pick at 6. And then Austin Eckler, obviously, he's a PPR nightmare if you're playing against him. And that Chargers offense looks pretty explosive. So I think that was a good pick too.
Yeah, so far so good. And I think the outlook for both of those guys are just as good because Derrick Henry's kind of the running back version of Tyreek Hill. He defies models, projection models, because he just can break off these runs, just like Tyreek can get a 75-yard touchdown out of nowhere. And all of a sudden your projection goes from 22 points to 48 points for that player. So, I mean, it's amazing how it happens. And it's very funny that with both those players, both first round picks, Pat Man Jones has been on the losing end of both of those boom type weeks. It's just a sad time for that poor franchise. I mean, think about what those fans have been through in the last few years, and to go in with so much hope because their owner, was switching jobs, switching careers kind of this off season, looking to invest his money in different ways, kind of getting out of the auditing market, looking more into the consulting and manufacturing market. And he had a lot of time off, a lot of vacation time. And I remember him saying, and he said this to his friends from other ownership groups and leagues as well, that with so much time on my hands, this is the year for me for fantasy. Yeah.
And I got a few more things for him in the next couple rounds as well.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it. So I think for me, it's really hard because this is why it's an interesting time to go over the draft stuff, but you have to look at Nick Chubb right now for Hunt.
We can do this later on too, a few weeks from now, but this is just what we're saying.
Great.
As of now.
Yeah. We'll timestamp this. They're going to be plenty of guys are going to be wanting receipts on some of these, and we're more than happy to throw these takes out. More than happy. But because I think right now, just when you look at Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt is getting a lot of the work. And not only is he getting a lot of the work, he's getting a lot of the goal line work. Last week, he was at the goal line a decent amount. And it's just, these are the things you can live with a Kareem Hunt if you're a Nick Chubb owner, but you can't live with him being a guy that's just at the goal line, vulturing, pesting those touchdowns off of you. So Nick Chubb, I mean, he's one of the all-time yards per carry guy, and he's an amazing player, and he'll continue to get points because that's just the way it goes. He'll continue to get good goal line touches and get you points, but he's not a target guy, and he's not getting those goal line touches that we thought. And it's looking like it's going to be a interesting year in that backfield because you have a quarterback that can't hit his number one receiver for 3 touchdowns. And instead of that, you have a backup running back, a cuffed running back who is taking goal line carries away. So you look at that, you see those missed throws, even at the goal line for the Browns, you're thinking, perfect. Nick Chubb's going to rush it in right here. And who comes out but the dreadlocked Kareem Hunt, not the clean-shaven, clean-cut Nick Chubb. So
it's got to be extremely frustrating for Alex to see that. Horrible. But at the same time, if you look at his team, basically, like, the reason I drafted Kareem Hunt was for that very reason. He's still, for whatever reason, very involved in that offense. And, rightfully so, both running backs are talented, even though I think Chubb is like an elite runner. Yeah. But Alex, in the 3rd round got Cooper Kupp. So he went running back. And Chubb's still a pretty safe play. He's going to get a lot of touches. He's still going to get goal line work. And vice versa. Like, I kind of got Kareem as the cuff, and I think he's the best cuff to own because
Yeah.
If Chubb did go down, Kareem becomes an unbelievable running back. But vice versa, if Kareem goes down, what does that make Nick Chubb?
Yeah, I think it's just interesting because when you look at it, I think he's just a good football player. He's just a good player. So, you have a guy that's able to get through tackles, able to catch the ball and work in space, and he's doing well. But, for the time being through week 4, that's the one that's probably the biggest concern right now. But like we said, we can't wait to be wrong on these and look at Ramos working through that. If Ramos is 3-1 with his number 1 pick, kind of boofing around without getting the goal line work, got to be very careful later on in the year when Kareem might go down. Kareem might take a back seat for a game or two, and all of a sudden you have a Nick Chubb 40-point week. I mean, that's how it goes. So we'll move on to round 2. And I think you have the bad one and I have the good one. So I'll go first. The good one, I think I might just get started right off the bat. It's looking pretty juicy in round 2. I think Najee Harris has to be one of the better picks right now because of pure usage. He's just getting every snap possible in that offense at running back, and he's dealing with a quarterback that can't throw more than 5 yards. That's perfect for a running back coming out of the backfield. So House of Pancakes hitting that one, and God knows how hard it is to nail a rookie running back right off the bat. They're so volatile. You don't know what their workload's going to be. But the Steelers weren't really shy about his workload going in, and they weren't lying.
Yeah, I think we knew going in that Najee was going to be that workhorse back. I think Tomlin likes that sort of offense where he has Le'Veon, and he got kind of away from it when James Conner was getting injured and whatnot. The question going into the season was how's the O-line going to hold up? He seems to be doing just fine. He's a beast, obviously. So that's obviously going to be interesting down the stretch to see if Big Ben can even pick it up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, if he can pick it up, or if someone gets in there via trade or via free agency or one of their backups, maybe even Dwayne Haskins, who knows? But it's looking like a tough pick for you because it's hard to find one that's an easy bust without bringing up injury into it. But you give it your best shot.
Yeah. So for round 2, I mean, the 2 that are sticking out right now are Joe Mixon and AJ Brown. Obviously both have a little bit of injury so far. So I think both of them are going to end up doing well. It's just, obviously a slow start to the year for AJ with a few injuries that seem to be nagging him a little bit, but he was full participant in practice yesterday. So interested to see what he does, especially without Julio. I think they're going to lean on him a lot this week if Julio ends up being out. And then Joe Mixon, yeah, obviously he hasn't, done too much yet. But I do think that Bengals offense, the Bengals are 3-1 and they look pretty good. Jamar Chase looks good. Joe Burrow looks pretty good. I know there was reports out of camp that he was kind of, he wasn't feeling comfortable on that knee or whatever, as well as Chase dropping balls. But it looks like that offense
is all right. Yeah.
T. Higgins will be back too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, everything's there for the taking for these guys. It just comes down to injury. It's just part of the game. So it's impossible right now to say you boofed it.
Yeah, there's no clear boof in that round, in my opinion.
No,
honestly, Ridley, point the finger at me. Ridley hasn't looked too good in that offense, and I think Julio helped him being there. It opened up some stuff for Ridley, and Ridley's one of the worst picks, and he's been healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's he's unhealthy this week, but it is interesting because I think the stats nerds and the analytics guys would say, oh, Julio leaving is perfect for Ridley because he's just going to get more targets. But it's what happened with Antonio and Juju a few years ago when Juju was on top of his game. When you have 2 receivers like that, you get open spaces and better targets because they're more open because they got to worry about the guy on the other side of the field. So yeah. I think that's very true. A lot of the nerds are eating their chow right now because of takes like that.
Yeah, it's all the age-old debate. Do you want more target share? Or do you want an offense that's moving? Like, do you want the ball to continue to move so you have more red zone looks, or do you want your guy to just get force fed and see drives might stall out, but he's getting tons of targets. So
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm so confident in him. I think really a really talented player. So I'm not too pissed that I picked him.
No, and I think Matty Ice still has the juice enough to make him go boom in a few weeks. So I'm stuck with the round 3 bad pick.
I think this one's pretty obvious.
This one turns into.
Actually, there's 2 right now.
I hate to do it. Turns into the Boofman Jones show, but I get to talk about my history with Allen Robinson. He's a good man. I'm not saying anything bad about the man, Allen Robinson. The player seems to be a cancer on any of the teams that he's on because he just seems to bring down the morale of any fantasy team. He was on my team all year last year. He was crying at the end of the year, begging to come back. We said no after a few meetings internally. It just wasn't going to work. He's a target hog, but when you watch the Bears closely, he's a target hog in 2-minute drill, 14-point deficit games in the fourth quarter. I can't tell you the amount of times where all of a sudden he went from 8 to 15 points because of a 25-yard gain and then a 30-yard gain down the middle because none of the defense really cares anymore. They already won. So exactly like you said with Ridley and with that debate, the high value targets aren't really there for him yet this year. And it's looking like it's going to be another slogging year for Allen Robinson because now he has a player like Justin Fields coming in who's clearly got some talent, but also clearly has some developmental issues to go forward. So Allen is looking like the pick that we can all circle around and just start chanting nightmare, 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 nightmare at Patman Jones because it's turning into a nightmare season for him and for Allen Robinson.
Yeah, completely agree with all that. Other notable ones, I'd say Chris Carson looks kind of whatever, and obviously he's out tonight for Thursday Night Football. And Robert Woods, I think, he's obviously been invisible in that Rams offense, which kind of leads me into my good pick for that round, which is obviously Cooper Kupp. It's been an absolute beast. And I was just looking at his numbers. He had a quiet fantasy week last week, but his targets are actually going up. He had 10 the first week, then 11, then 12, then 13. So we'll see if that trend continues. I feel like Stafford's going to start leaning on Robert Woods a little bit more, but he likes to air it out. I don't know. We'll see. Cooper Kupp is a great pick.
Cooper Kupp is definitely the pick. I mean, he catapulted Ramos to a 3-0 record and might catapult him when it's all said and done to a pretty straightforward playoff berth. And when you have those explosion weeks, you just sit back and all you can do is laugh and have a great time because this is a pick that might bring you all the way. Like you said, his target share keeps going up. The targets keep going up. And he's doing routes that haven't been seen before. And he and Hunter Renfrow are doing the same thing. They took it each other. And Cooper Kupp's just better than Hunter Renfrow, bigger than Hunter Renfrow, and can get it done, especially in the red zone, in that unbelievable Rams offense. So, I mean, he is firing on all cylinders. If he gives you an 8-point week, you fire him right back up and you're expecting another 20 next week. And it might happen tonight. Let's go to round 4 because this is another one. I think, Bob, I have the bad one. And the bad one is looking, we're taking Gus Edwards out of it because he got hurt. The bad one's looking pretty obvious. Let's go over to the Chase gentleman. Sean Davis. Sean Davis is an RB3 in his own backfield. Matt Ryan is better at running the ball than Chalk Davis. A journeyman who is going to the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, because of his playmaking ability and special teams. He's been an all-pro for like 3 or 4 years. Super Bowl champion, 2018 Patriots. My pick that night for Super Bowl MVP as a top. And, he's with a low-scoring game. He's one breakaway touchdown away from doing what Desmond Howard did in 96 and winning the MVP. But you look at him and you watch football, you watch the Atlanta Falcons, Cordero Patterson's just better, more elusive, faster than Chonk Davis. There's a reason we call him Chonk Davis. He's just a big, bumbling, stumbling running back who gets good volume if he's in a great offense. And Bob, as you stated, he's not in a great offense right now. They're not in rhythm, and he's losing touches. So you can't go anywhere without looking at Chonk Davis and saying, "Wish, that's not looking good." Josh Jacobs is in a situation where it's an injury situation. So I think TDK wasn't wrong there. Week 1 looked very good, but just injuries are injuries, man. They're brutal. So all in all, Mike Davis ain't injured, and Mike Davis stinks.
All right, so I'm good pick for this round.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think we mixed that up, but looking at it.
Oh yeah, we did.
It's all good.
Dude, you want to go bad pick and just pick?
Yeah, I mean another bad pick as of now. It looks like Kyle Pitts. Drafting a tight end that early is always tough if they're not producing, crazy value. So
yeah,
I need to double check. I don't think he's done anything this year.
No, he's eclipsed 10 points once.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting with Ridley out. I think it might be a breakout game for him. But yeah, Pitts looks like a bad pick in that round as well. Julio obviously hasn't done too much, and then Miles Sanders I don't think has done that much in Philly either.
Yeah, he might lose his job. These are all. This was the round 4 is when we got into scary hours for some teams, because I think a lot of lack of success can be pointed directly at. Well, in a normal world, we could do that, but Miles Sanders is about to lose his job. And Miles Sanders, his owner, is 4-0. Davis stinks, and his owner and the Chiefs gentlemen are 2-2. Julio Jones has done nothing really. It has this hammy flaring up once again like a goddamn tiki torch. And I'm 3-1. Kyle Pitts is on a team that you said disappointed, and he's on a 3-1 franchise. So what's up is down. What's down is up this year. Nothing makes sense. I hope it'll all even out at some point, especially for the Pat Man Jones franchise. They're begging for regression of some sort. But they literally were praying for a win this week. It was unbelievable. Pat Man Jones said, "Can I please get a goddamn win?" And the desperation just in his text seeped through my phone, and I smelled it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, but I think I might have put him to the woodshed last week after Tyreek.
When Tyreek's and you put up 160 and still can't get the win, maybe it's just not your year, man.
That's tough.
You just gotta pack up and get ready for hibernation. So let's go real quick to the 5th round. This is an injury-filled one. There have been a few injuries all over the place, but let's just focus. Well, let's just go straight at one player each time, good or bad. Let's just talk about. We could talk about Myles Gaskin, because he's been god awful. He's droppable. Advised droppable by certain fantasy articles. But Brandon Ayuk's got to be the wild one, but it makes no sense. He was the consensus beast in the 49ers wide receiver room, and he's not producing. I mean, you look back, I don't take anyone else where he gets taken other than him. Everyone's looking pretty smart for taking guys after him. But you ask a bunch of these owners, they'd take Ayuk if he were available at 56 plus.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, obviously I had Ayuk last year in the trade with Here Comes Treble. And he looked good. I mean, he was producing like wide receiver 1, debatable wide receiver 2 numbers at the end of the year. But you got to keep in mind that Debo was also injured, and Kittle was injured. So he was getting a lot of the target share. And I feel like Shanahan's just kind of a dick when it comes to fantasy. Like, he'll mix it up and do a bunch of weird stuff thinking he's smarter than everyone. So
Shenanigans.
Yeah, so that's
literally
annoying.
shenanigans.
Yeah, it's obviously a tough pick for TDK, but in his like going into the draft, it's not like he didn't do his research on the guy.
Right. So let me do that. Why do you need to do that? Unbelievable.
What's going on, Frank Cross?
The new roommates don't know how to act around podcasts. That's how it goes.
The clear as day good pick for that round is DJ Moore. He's
pick.
Wide receiver 4 right now, and honestly, he's giving Pat-Man Jones enough points to stick around if he can string a few wins together.
That's true. I mean, as much as we're ragging on the PMJs, you're right. You look at that 0.4 total, you can jump from 8 to 4 real quick later on in the year if you start stacking enough wins to stay alive. So that's so true. I mean, you look at other guys. Darrell Henderson's looking great. A lot of people were scared off by him in the pre-draft circuit. He's looking great. Chase Edmonds is looking fantastic. Kyler Murray looks like he's taking it yet another step. Kareem is looking great as that third running back that's turned into running back 2, and that's exactly why you need him.
Yep.
Mark Andrews is on and off, but when you talk about tight end production, like you said with Kyle Pitts, he's giving you exactly what you want. He's giving you 12 to 14 points a week. That sets the tone for the rest of the offense when you have a wide receiver, a tight end like that that's putting up those kind of numbers. Let's move to round 6. If we were recording this podcast last week, Bob, Kenny Golladay would probably be right at the top of the list. But yeah. I don't know who did what in the locker room, but he woke up last week and it looks like he wants to stay as long as he can on a clearly contending team in the Ra's al Ghuls this year.
Yeah, we gave him a stern talking to, and I won't go any further into detail with that, but he started performing pretty well. So I expect a lot more of that from Golladay.
Got to give him credit, honestly, because a lot of guys that get that kind of talking to would just curl up in a ball and not show up on Sunday. He responded well to it. Fantastic.
He's ready to go. He sees some injuries on the Giants, and he wants to earn that money that they gave him this offseason. So yeah, Galladay's going to be a beast for the rest of the year. Other thing I'm looking at in that round, I think Brandon Cooks has had a great year so far.
Great year.
And it looks like Moise Tallett drafted him, but I'm not sure if he rosters him still. So
no, I got to check on that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this seems to be full of. I mean, the easy and obvious one right now is Juju Smith-Schuster, as Tony Toe Tap, Antonio Brown calls him Poo Poo Smith-Schuster, which is one of the best nicknames of all time. Not Tony Toe Tap, but Poo Poo Schuster. So he's looking like a guy that's just a 4th wide receiver. I mean, I think Yahoo Fantasy, Chief Gentleman told us Yahoo Fantasy ranks him as a wide receiver 6, and he doesn't even have 6 wide receivers on his roster. So that goes to show you where Chase at as a franchise. Can Juju be rejuvenated? Can he be recreated? I don't know. This offense doesn't look good.
I think that's what Chase gets for drafting a little TikToker who does little bunny rabbit dances on the 50-yard line. I feel like you should just kind of know. You don't even need to know anything about football. You just watch that and be like, I don't want that guy on my team.
Absolutely. And
sometimes you just got to have that gut feeling about players, and apparently Chafe was missing it that day.
No, the gut feeling's not there. Chafe loves his TikTok and he loves Instagram, and I think that might rule the day sometimes in that front office. So we move on to round 7. I mean, we have Laviska Shenault, great pick.
Deebo Samuel,
fantastic pick.
Going back to Pat-Man, he's got DJ Moore and Deebo, not in the first couple of rounds. And it's just crazy that he's 0-4 with those 2 stud wide receivers.
Right. Amazing pick. This is a quarterback round. We have a few guys that have yet to show themselves a little bit, and a few just steady streamers. They got a Melvin Gordon who just gets you steady points. We got a bunch of quarterbacks. Corey Davis popped last week to take down the Dark Knights.
Mike Williams for trouble. This is actually
Mike Williams, wide receiver 1 season.
Keenan's been pretty good too, right? I don't know.
Keenan's been great, but those numbers are there for Mike Will. Not last week, they were there. They have been there for Mike Williams. And I mean, he's a talented guy. It's one of those things. Talent translates at some point. You remember you were one of the first on the Devontae God level train, because remember those first 3 years were ugly for that dude. He had
drop problems, right?
He had drops problems. He had offensive learning curves, all these different things that led to everyone wondering when they're going to get someone else in there to be the wide receiver one. He turned out to be just fine. So that's happening with Mike Williams, which looks like a great pick. And then we'll move on to round 8, where I'm biased on this one. TJ Hawkinson was a great keeper by the House of Pancakes. Michael Gallup looked pretty darn good before he got hurt in week 1, which is unfortunate. I think Michael Thomas, we already hit on with being a great keeper potential, which is fantastic. DJ Chark is long gone. He was gone early on last Thursday. James Conner looks like a plotter who just has no place in that offense, just kind of a goal line running back guy. He reminds me of Peyton Barber from back in the day. And, I have to say Jarvis Landry, but I'm still hanging my hat, especially when it comes to what could be in store for the future for someone like Leonard Fournette. I'm very biased, but I think that could turn out to be a huge value if he can continue to kind of give the production that he's given so far, because I think more or less it's 10 plus point weeks for Leonard Fournette. And, when you're looking at this round, you can point to only a few guys that have produced that much so far this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously this late in the draft, you're starting to throw a little more dart throws and more high upside guys, and it's kind of tough to gain value. So it's just I'm looking at even the rest of the rounds. Like, I don't think we should even go, round for round.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
More to say if you see anything in there.
I'd say a great one that turned out fantastic last year and is looking good and looking like good insurance as well as JD McKissick for Paula in the 11th round. That's just a darn good pick. Ron Moore was the rage early on, but he's kind of cooled off.
Hollywood Brown, the next round for Paula.
Yeah, Paula's team is a strong team. For him to be 1-3, it kind of tells you the topsy-turvy nature of the league so far this year.
Latavius Murray late for Nico.
Yeah, and unfortunately he was one of the first cuts for TDK, and
true.
And now is on the House of Pancakes, looking like a potential flex option or a bye week option. And I think, when you get back Kendrick Bourne, I mean, I guess. There's no one else back here that's really given anyone any sort of great hope for the future. Which, Rob Gronkowski's looking pretty darn good, but he also cracked a bunch of ribs in week 3. So, we'll see where that goes. And Mac Jones was taken in round 14. Still not sure about that one. But yeah, it's just an interesting time. I think it looks like the keeper situation for next year in this draft was pretty darn even. I think everyone was able to leave the draft comfortable and happy with their strategy. So it's interesting. It's tough to go back and relitigate this stuff when we have knowledge that I know everyone would have loved to have had that Labor Day. But this is just a good opportunity, like you said, to go back, see where the value is now and see where the value could be later on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that just about wraps it up, right? We're trying to catch the Sox.
Yeah, time to catch the Sox. And please leave your reactions, leave your ill wishes on us for the takes that we've had below this link when we post it onto the League of Shadows Twitter. I know if
like buttons below.
Like and subscribe. And please be kind. But at the same time, if we weren't kind to you, we're not expecting the same. Pat Man, that goes for you. Chafe, that goes for you. Hamos, feel free. A tenant of this podcast gets hit hard with a few picks right after he's unable to do a podcast. That's not on purpose. We're a fair, independent, good podcast. But yeah, Bob, thanks for jumping on. This has been great. I think we'll do it later on this year. We might do another mid-year report. I know everyone hated midterms. I know I did in high school and college. Never seemed to go well for me. We'll see how they go in fantasy, and then we'll have the finals. And those finals are going to be very, very dangerous for some people. We're going to have to worry about them and their well-being when they look back at some of the decisions they made. But that's how it all goes. It happened to me a few years ago. It happened to me last year. It happened to you a few years ago when Roz missed the playoffs after coming off a championship. I mean, these things just happen. You got to live and learn, and we'll keep doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and let's do this later on in the year where we can take a look and see if anything's changed.
Absolutely. Sounds great. All right. For everyone, enjoy Voice of the People, ShadowCast. Have a blessed weekend.